Hello.
Good morning. Are
Good
you on the East
morning.
Coast?
How are you?
I'm great. Are you on the East Coast?
I am on the East Coast, so it's, noon here, just around lunchtime. So welcome. I feel like that fig plant or whatever that plant is in the background, I've become like well familiar with seeing you in social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah, she's very famous.
She's very famous, but she doesn't have a
She's
name, right?
Insta famous. She has no name, but she's Insta famous.
I love that. Like, I'm sure so many people covet the celebrity status of that plant. Why doesn't she have a name? Is she just decided to just...
I don't know. She hasn't been named. I don't know, but she did. I'm clear that she's a female. That seems to have become clear.
I love that. I love that.
Thriving in the pandemic, all of the love and care that I've given her. I feel like it's like our hair, caring for your plants is another way that we honor ourselves. Yeah.
I've never kept a plant alive. So
this is new for me. This is really new for me.
Well, that's impressive. I have like 2 kids, so I'm like, as long as I can keep them going, we're good. Yeah. But a plant somehow is too much for me. I think my earphones actually. This is like the joy of time.
You just flipped. I see your other
connection. You see my
your lovely video.
Let me flip it back. Hold on. There we go.
There you are.
Oh, there you go.
Nope.
You're getting like the inside view. That's because we have these like lovely backgrounds on the wall. But if you turn this around, you see like 50 million trucks and Legos in this room. It's also a death trap
you're
with all that
beautiful
stuff. So, well, anyway, I'm going to pop these back in because something's happening with my audio. Again.
This is what we're living.
Roll with it. If you hear a dog or a kid, just pretend. Everyone just pretend that you're not hearing anything, and don't judge me if one of them makes a cameo appearance. But anyway, Tracee, I'm really excited to talk to you. And first of all, I really want to start with your entrepreneurial endeavor because you've had this extraordinary career, obviously, in the entertainment industry. But this beauty brand has been something that you've been incubating for decades and really more formally for the past decade. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the inspiration behind it, what this endeavor represents, not just for you, but also for Black and brown women within the larger beauty community.
First of all, I thought it was really lovely that you said incubating for about a decade. I would say trying to make it happen.
There's certain words like incubate, pivot, right? It's
absolutely. I think putting a positive frame on it is always nice, and also giving it the entrepreneurial language is also really helpful. It started as a personal desire to have. Let me put do not disturb on. It started as
no problem.
Was a need for me looking for products all through my teen years, 20s, whatever, realizing that there just weren't products out there. And why were the products that were supposedly for my hair in the back corner of a store, why did they not look glorious and beautiful? Why were they the same products for the last 30, 40, 50 years? Why, when I looked on the back of a package, did it say to use a dime size and I had to use half of the bottle? All of the different things that weren't actually meeting me where my hair lived. And when I sort of ventured out into the world, I realized that so many other people, that there was a vast community of curly, coily, and tight textured people out in the world that also were looking for products that had needs that were unmet. And that started my journey. And so it took about 10 years. I think it was a combination of a lot of different things. I think it was a combination of the beauty industry not actually noticing, recognizing the power and the beauty, and the economic wealth, actually, that is in this vast community of curly, coily, and tight textured hair, basically sort of anchored in the Black and brown community and Black women's hair. Also that my platform and my career hadn't gotten to a place yet where anything I wanted to do was an open door. And I think our world was actually not, you know, the term Black girl magic didn't exist at the time. So the recognition of our importance in the industry of beauty wasn't quite there. And I will be very specific to say our beauty, our power, our importance, our wealth, the authentic beauty of our hair and how it grows out of our head has always been here. It is a global, it is present globally. It is here historically. I think Black women and our hair have been at the center of economic, social, cultural, and political change and revolutions throughout time. But the industry was catching up, which I think we find in all industries, and particularly right now, there's such a recognition of that. But when Pattern was born about a year ago, by the time I got there, after incubating for my 10 years, I really had a real clear vision of what I wanted the company to be and the space that I wanted it to hold as a beauty company that was centered around Black beauty, a beauty company that was also an active space where we could see our authentic beauty, and also, and most importantly, effective products that actually worked, met us where our hair was, and were not toxic.
You know, something that's so interesting is sort of you talk about this huge need in the marketplace, right? And you always think sort of with entrepreneurs or the world that we live in that opportunity sort of will be matched with products and services. And clearly that wasn't the case. You know, we have so many entrepreneurs in the Forbes community, and I thought it was so interesting that when you talk to marketing executives or leaders in the business industry, you know, as you continue to bring this life to idea, to this idea to life, a lot of them said, you know, if there was a really big market, someone would be serving it, or why don't you just partner with someone? I know you were very deliberate to launch this brand yourself. How did that influence what you perhaps have done differently than maybe some of the more traditional players within the beauty industry, in the ways that others can think about carving out their own niche or really, you know, maximizing opportunity?
Well, I think specifically around this market and my market, sort of who I am personally, because the industry has not supported us, and there haven't been eons of choices and sort of all of these things existing, we have become our own best experts. Most of us are being our own chemists in our bathroom. We've done all the research. We're either making our own products, or we're mixing products, or we're mixing brands, or we've searched far and wide. And so as a result, and also my own personal experience was that a lot of professionals, quote unquote, actually didn't know how to meet my hair where it was. They knew how to put heat on my hair. They knew how to do all the old traditional things that were leaning me into a standard of beauty that actually didn't make space for me. And so I felt like it's not that it was important that I didn't partner with somebody, it was important that I stayed true to my vision. And in the 10 years of journey that I had with so many disappointments, which I really like to talk about, because every disappointment, I would take the hit, I would take the this really sucks, and then I would get back up and ask myself, what was it? Was there any truth in the no? Was there a reason there was a no? And was there a way for me to articulate my vision more clearly?
Did you ever doubt the idea or yourself?
No.
You just said sort of there's a piece of knowledge in this feedback that I need to take in to move this forward. And
sometimes there wasn't a piece of knowledge in the feedback. But I will also say, to respond to what you said, part of what you said at the earlier part of your question, strangely enough, in all industries, and this is a part of what we're in right now in terms of this racial reckoning, again, it's always a surprise that we buy, that we are beautiful, that we are talented, that we are important. It's always a surprise. It's a surprise in Hollywood when our movies are a hit, when our shows are a hit, and it's ridiculous. It's not new. It's not new information. Somehow there are not metrics. The metrics seem to disappear in support of that, but it's not new. We're not new. It's the same thing when I won my Golden Globe. Part of what I was saying in my speech And the only reason I bring that up is not to do this, but part of what I was saying in my speech is it had been 35 years or so since a Black woman had been nominated in that category, but it had not been 35 years since a Black woman was the lead in her life. That is happening all over the place. Black women and our hair has needed products since the beginning of time until the end of time, just like everybody else.
You know, you've talked about sort of so much in Hollywood, the need to expand these cultural narratives, and obviously you're doing so in the business arena. And we've seen sort of those moments as waves, right, where people are like, you know, just somehow waking up to that there's a market, even though, to your point, it's been there for a very long time. And there's waves, but waves imply sort of that they come in and that they recede. We've been through this extraordinary moment in time, very, very painful, but there are silver linings to it in terms of how cultures and businesses are reacting. Do you feel that this is something that will be lasting within the conversations that you're having and the ways in which, you know, you have a unique vantage point across several industries?
I hope so. It's not really a question for me. It's really a question for everyone else, for not everyone else, for those people, the gatekeepers and the people that are just waking up to this. For those people to actually learn, change their mindset, and continue to pursue dismantling the systems that make it so that we can be so separated, that there can be a misunderstanding of humanity, or even a limitation and oppression of a version of humanness. And so it's not really a question for me, but I do think that I am incredibly encouraged, mostly because what I see is an uprising that is contained and held in a real specific movement that is about dismantling the systems that have held these kinds of beliefs in place. I think for me, pattern is one of the many ways that I participate in the resistance, in the revolution, in the movement, and in the expression of my wholeness and our beauty and our importance. It's part of my mission that travels through all aspects of my career, is a celebration of the authentic humanity and the whole humanity of Black women specifically, but Black and brown people in general, and the LGBTQIA plus community. Like this, there are vast groups, communities, human beings that intersect into all these areas that are wonderful, extraordinary, robust parts of our community. And we all deserve freedom and safety. And so if pattern is a place where, yes, we are about hair products, but what I have discovered is that the celebration of Blackness in and of itself is revolutionary, in and of itself is political in the face of racism. But I also having a space that pattern is not just about creating products, but is about honoring self and seeing ourselves. And so it's also the imagery that we use, the lens through which we create our content and imagery, through the lens of Blackness and color. So
I mean, there's this intentionality in all that you do. And what I love is speaking to people who have very diverse careers, but there's such a defining through line, you know, that connects each of these experiences. You know, when you look at your career, you have had a very successful career. You've taken on a number of different chapters, and you talk a lot about the fact that we need to be celebrating sort of reinvention and the opportunities to continue to dream big and to seize the opportunities that we have. You know, that's another stereotype that you've talked about wanting to bash, is that you don't have to necessarily have one set of dreams. Talk a little bit about that in the context of your latest film, The High Note, and what that represented to you in the arc of your career.
You know, it's interesting. It's not only seizing the opportunity, it's creating the opportunity, right? It's actually expanding that real estate without waiting for someone else to give you permission. And that's so much of what's opening up in this moment, right? Is that people are creating their own tables. They're not just trying to get a seat at a table that exists. And that's been happening for quite some time. The High Note was a really special experience for me. It was a movie that, in essence, the story was about the fact that it's never too late. There's never a phase, an age, a stage in your life where it's too late to go after your dreams. It's too late to become more yourself, or to experience a different part of your life, or to dream big, any of those things. It was also a story that was about two women on parallel paths, not against each other. And I found that to be really wonderful in the context of how we usually see two women in a story. It was also a story that kind of looked at and poked holes in the idea of ageism, sexism, and racism, and how that plays itself out in our own life experiences. And it's the story of a woman who is an iconic, you know, decades full of hits as a superstar singer that I got to play. And I also got to sing. And then I also got to work with all women, female director, female writer. It was really a very special, liberating experience for me.
I want to talk about you singing in the film, because you mentioned earlier that sort of one of the messages of the film is that you need to you know, continue to push and reinvent. You know, you obviously come from genes that are very well known in the singing arena, Diana Ross, but you had never. I mean, once or twice I've heard of her. You know, that's small figure in the music industry. But you had talked about that. So this is the first, you know, film in which you sing. You talked about that you have been terrified since childhood. I would imagine that there's some pressures, right? You know, the shadow, or the perceived shadow that's cast from a very well-known parent. But at age 47, you took that leap to face a fear, but also something that you called a dream for yourself. What did that represent to you? And also, what's the sort of the lesson in terms of that experience, as people think about those things that are, you know, I always call them those things that sort of just make your heart race, those terrifying moments, and finding ways to push through and seize those.
You know, I think the overall opportunity and lesson for me was really profound, that you can walk through a fear, like a genuine, like there's nothing you could have told me. I understand it was irrational, but there's no way you could have told me that monster wasn't real, that like whatever I was seeing was could genuinely take me down. So to walk through a fear towards a dream and actually find freedom on the other side of that was life-changing. Because it was a fear that I had held for so long, you know, like it's not that I had, first of all, I'd never.
You held it, but you conquered it.
I conquered
it. I mean,
not only did I conquer it, I recorded 7 songs. I put out a soundtrack that I have 5 songs on. I sang with a live microphone on stage in a film. And my song, the single that we first put out, is number 14 on the adult contemporary charts. Like Ryan Seacrest knows about my song.
I love that. I love that. Right. Like, but, and you didn't take like a baby step, right? Like you went from 0 to like 1,000 off the ledge, 1,000 miles an hour, to make this happen. What was the moment in time that you were like, this is the dream has been conquered?
I think it was the first time I heard the music, when I heard myself back. You know, I've sung in the shower, I've done little things here and there during my acting experiences and stuff, but to actually record in a studio and then hear yourself back, I was like, wait, what? Oh my God, it was crazy. And so when that started to happen, I started to realize that the fear, it was like smoke and mirrors, that like it was not this monster that I thought it was. There were a couple of other moments in there that I started to panic, but the first moment was sort of, and you know, I find that that's what happens when you're taking leaps. Like it's fits and starts, you know, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But I think that first moment I heard myself was when it kind of clicked. I was like, oh my God, I think you're doing it. It's similar to Pattern, in all honesty. There was a moment when it just felt, I mean, obviously after 10 years of working towards something, it was like, is it ever going to happen? You know? And then when we started, it was still like, I was still in the mindset of, I don't know, you know? And I remember there was this point, and I still feel like as a very new company, we're less than a year old, a little over a year. It's like we're flying a plane that we're still building. I mean, we're still such a teeny group. We all do everything and overlap in abilities. I do everything with everyone. Packaging, the copy on the back of the packet, like just everything. We're all doing it together. But there was a moment there when all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, we have goop. Mm-hmm. Like we have goop that like I want to use on my hair in my shower. I want to get rid of everything else. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually.
It's real. It's real.
It's real. Yeah.
I want to wrap up because, I can imagine the past 12 months have been, really defining in a lot of ways. You started this business, which obviously incredibly important to you and represents an evolution of you continuing to, give space to have women be them authentic selves, embrace themselves, continuing to change narratives. This film's an example of this. We have this extraordinary cultural reckoning in this country as well. What has been, the biggest learning for yourself in this moment in time around how to use your platform? And how does that translate to other people who may not necessarily have that same size of a platform, but who are looking ways to be agents of change and to be able to drive progress within their respective arenas?
Well, I don't think it's about the size of your platform. I think it helps, sure, but I actually think it's about the authenticity of your message and your narrative. Each of us has a unique story. Each of us has a unique vantage point. So I think staying true to that and allowing your platform to be a space for you to share that narrative as opposed to performing what you think other people want from you, I think is the biggest, the most helpful thing that I use as a guide. In terms of the experience that we're in now, the moment that we're in right now, I really think it's important for people to be informed, to actually listen, to look to those people who do the work that connects to you, that are ahead of you in the game, that have more knowledge and wisdom and information than you, both in business, in civic engagement, in political conversations, in social action. I think there's so many people out there, and that's one of the beauties of social media is we can actually see each other and we can connect in those places that actually pull us into the direction that we want to go. I don't think social media means you have to always say something just because, like, you can still think before you speak. And
What's that? I don't know what that is anymore. Right?
Exactly. It's incredibly important. But, Pattern is a mobile first brand. And so always sort of focusing and reminding ourselves, what is the mission of this brand? And how do we stay true to that in any moment as the tides change? How can we each continue evolving and growing and learning while still keeping our eye on the prize? What is the message, the mission of your brand? And I do encourage people to name that for themselves. What is your mission? What is your intention here? And what is the promise of your brand?
I love that. I love that.
Incredibly important. So this was fun.
This was fun. Thank you. And I love that sort of defining what your purpose is, but also your point that the barriers to entry rate have never been lower in terms of the ability to access information, insight, and to be, a force for good in whatever way that you want to define it. And so it really is having that intention and taking the first step, or in your case, it seems like you don't take steps, you take leaps. So congratulations on all the success. I hope when I see you next that your friend behind you is still doing well. Maybe that could be your next venture.
Exactly. I'll be a plant lady.
There you go. Well, congratulations. And thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much. Have a great and beautiful day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.